Hey guys, it's TF Note. Welcome back to the channel, and for this very late final day of Anime Week here on the channel, I'm going to be taking a look at the Bandai Tamashii Nation's Robot Spirits Mobile Suit Gundam, The Witch of Mercury Gundam Aerial anime version. I say I was pretty late to this because I tried to do Anime Week within a span of less than a week, actually, like 5 days, like I originally planned, and unfortunately a lot of real life stuff was toppling on top of me, so I do apologize for being late to this one. But this is actually a little bit of a newer figure out of all the ones I've been reviewing for this week. I believe it came out the end of last year or earlier this year. I just hadn't gotten around to getting it until like a month ago. And if you haven't watched Witch of Mercury, I'm actually digging it. I'm not super far in, so I can't form a final opinion, but I think it's a very promising show. With this box here, when it comes to the Robot Spirits line, I don't own that many figures in this line, but the boxes are slightly different from, SH Figure Arts, because even though the designs are very similar, you do see just that one window box of the figure in the box there. But this is a wider box instead of a longer box, so it's a little bit harder to show everything in one close-up image. But I'm giving you a look at just how the figure looks in the box and the designs on the box. Gundam Aerial right there is really cool. Bandai Namco. It also says Gundam Aerial anime version. The Bandai Tamashii Nation's logos, as well as the older Tamashii Nation's quality sticker. Also, that is the logo for Witch of Mercury right there. On this side, it just goes through the technical stuff of what this is. The Robot Spirit side of Essence is number 301 out of this whole series. This was made in China. Looking at it from here, this might look a little dark, but we do get a very nice long shot there of Gundam Aerial, looking very nicely done on the box here. These boxes are always really cool. And then this side here shows off a lot of different stuff that this comes with, and some of the different posing involving some of the extra features and accessories. Again, it does say Robot Spirits and Gundam Aerial, anime version. Now, if you look here, you can kind of see Aerial there again, but it just says the name of the Gundam in anime version. Once again, looking on the bottom here, a little bit of a close-up image of Aerial over there on the right. All that stuff that you all have seen plenty of times on the box by now. And one more look at this packaging with the back here. Kind of like the side of the box, it shows off some different posing and accessories that this comes with and what you can do with this particular figure. This is a really nice box, like I keep saying. Very cool. And then down here, support pages, ages 15 and up, barcode in case you need it, and warning, choking hazard. Let's go ahead and get this figure out of the packaging. And here is the figure out of the packaging. This is a really nice figure. I can see why this is as much as it is on some retailers. It's going for like 75 bucks somewhere. I have a couple gripes with my particular figure. We will get there in a second. We also have a lot of accessories that I will try to go through as quickly as I can. So let's go ahead and take a look at those. Don't take a close look at the figure. I am not kidding when I say this is probably the most complicated accessory portion I've ever done on the channel. Like, seriously. This instruction manual here, not only is it very large and wide, it is very helpful. There's a lot of different armor pieces to plug things into, a lot of delicate parts. So I'll try to leave the PDF in the description as well, so you can have a better view of that. But if you're getting this figure, just know you're going to need some patience, and we're going to be here for a bit. I will have a section with chapters where you can see some of the stuff assembled, so be on the lookout for that. As you see, this is one of the more straightforward pieces. This is a hand tree, and a lot of side MS figures come with this. You can see that these hands are done in a very similar fashion with the back armor pieces with the white and the panel lines there. Part of me wishes that Bandai would, or Tamashii Nations at least, would commit to painting the panel lines, but they are rather small, so I can see that being kind of a nightmare. We have different posing for these hands. These are more wide, finger spread. I don't even know how to speak. Action posing, and then we do have these more relaxed hands. The palms are really big. I really like the nice long claw-like fingers too. We also have these shield and beam saber holding hands. Last but not least, you also get these rifle holding hands. You get a hand for each side, and the figure comes packaged with the fists. So that's pretty cool. When it comes to the beam saber, so this is how it looks assembled. This is a very nice piece, and it's pretty straightforward. We do have separation that goes right here. It's actually really difficult. I don't know. It's because I'm behind the camera. That's why. So it's just this basic white plastic for the handle, as you see there. And we do have some nice white lines sculpted in there, so that's cool. You can port this thin piece back in there. And then, yeah, no problem there. This is what the other one looks like, just separated. It's a nice light blue translucent plastic on this beam effect. I also have one of these pieces, you know, the handle here, ported onto the weapon storage, as you see, and it moves a little bit. We'll talk about articulation in a second. I did want to show off that this backpack piece is separate, but it is packaged in with the figure, but that's what the actual back of the figure looks like. And then porting that back in, stays just fine. This port piece here, you see this little thin slot right there, and then this plug. So you're supposed to plug this into here. And it's a pretty snug fit. You might want to push it in. Yeah, you push it in a little bit. There's slots on the side of the rifles, as you see here. When you plug it in, if I can do so, stays in like that. If you give it a little bit of a push, then it will pop out, unfortunately. Just be careful with that. We have an extra chevron piece. I tried to see if this was any different from the one that this comes packaged with. I don't believe it is. I think they just gave an extra one just in case you do break it, which is nice. The red paint on there is really good. It's pretty clean on the white plastic. It's a little bit of detailing going on. There's a really small piece, so they have some pretty decent detailing for what it is. This is an adapter piece, I believe, that plugs into the back side right here. And this is for Tamashii Nation bases. You know, they have special side MS bases that are clear for stuff like that, so just keep that in mind. I don't own one. I wish this figure came with one. I know it already comes with a lot of stuff, but it would have been cool to see. Okay, let's talk about some of the armor pieces. We do have these shoulder pads here. A lot of this is going to be made for the shield as well, so we'll talk about that in a second. You can see the blue plastic on here is really nice. They have some black paint, as well as some brighter yellow. That looks really cool. That's where you would plug this into the shoulder pads. And you could also use this as shield parts, as well as floating, you know, weapon parts for when this figure has the weapons. You guys know what I'm talking about with that special thing where the shield becomes guns, basically. And then this port piece here is for the right forearm. You would just turn this around and you can stick this in like that. And it actually has a ball joint in here, which is pretty cool, and it can articulate a little bit. The detailing on the panel lines there is really cool. This one is meant for the other side, and all we get is just this, you know, little bit of light blue paint going on here. That's really clean, actually, and then some panel lines sculpted in there as well. Then we also have, if I can find the other one, these hip pieces. So I believe this is the left one. There might be an indicator on the inside. I actually can't tell. It's a little bright, but I believe this is the right one and it's the left one. They also have ball joints there. You plug it into the hips, and we do have some paneling going on there. So the forearm and hip pieces are not needed for this particular shield piece, because as you can see, the way that this looks already looks like those pieces I just talked about. There's a little bit of light blue paint going on in there. That's what the inside looks like with this little bit of a ball joint here. And then this, I haven't tried out if you can remove this handle. I'm not gonna. You might be able to, but I don't think I can right now. But when you have the grip hands on here, it's a little complicated to have the grip hands and then plug this into the left forearm at the same time. But a lot of the let's see, these will plug into that shield. And again, I'll show off some stuff in a second. These shield pieces will port in there. These will groove into that. These pieces here. That's also made. You see how complicated this is? These are also meant to go into this rifle right here. And there's a connector piece for this, and I'll show off in a second. But essentially, when you have the connector piece in there, you just build it like this, you know, when it's not being shot. In order to do that, you need to have this like T-looking connector piece going in here. Wow, lots of different stuff, huh? This took me like 7 different times to film this entire thing, and it's still too long. And then you port this in here. Then when you pop this out, which is a little hard to do, when you want to fire it, you get this light blue effects piece that goes in there. Going all the way. And there, I don't remember if I showed off the rifle. This is a very nice sculpt for it. It's kind of a basic light gray plastic, but there's a little bit of paint in that viewfinder right there. So all that inner workings are really cool. Didn't talk about these too much. Again, these are wing pieces with a nice light blue plastic. And these will port into the... I just had something. This right here. So essentially, this plugs into the back with this thin slot going into the back piece here. The idea is you plug these into this, and it makes the back wing pieces and all that. These are really hard to take out once you pop them in, so I'm not really going to mess around with this too much, but you get to see how that looks right there. And when you plug this entire wing piece into the back side here, it does get difficult to pop out. So they did provide a pry tool for when you need to pry that back piece out so you don't mess up anything, which I do appreciate them doing that. The last thing to talk about is some of the clear effects parts. You get 6 of these, and this is where you would plug in different parts for the weapon system. So the shoulder pad parts, of course, they become weapon pieces. You can plug that in, some of the other parts too. You get 6 of these swooping type of effects pieces right here. This part with the cap on here is made for the triangle piece right here, and you can move this around a little bit. And then this larger ball joint goes into this port right here. I went ahead and put a bunch of these in here because I was taking photos of this earlier. So you see how all this looks right here. You can also port this on a Tamashii stage. And then this right here, this would plug, if I don't have this piece right here, this plugs into that. There's a lot of complicated stuff. So let's take a look at some of the stuff assembled on here. Here are all the armor parts on the Gundam here. So you can see, you know, different sides of the shoulders, the forearms, the hips, and the back piece that are all ported on there. Getting it on there is rather easy. Popping it off can be a little bit tricky sometimes because the way that some of the ball joint pieces work, they will kind of want to, those pegs will want to stick into the figure sometimes, but you can pull them out just as easily. It's just, it can be a little bit of a hassle popping things back in and out on this particular figure. Once you get everything properly built onto this, it is really cool looking. All this armor stuff here is really nice. You can use some of the armor pieces, like I said, for the shield. So you build all of that on the entire shield here, and the instructions are going to definitely help with that. This here is very nice looking. When it comes to the high grade model kit, you need all of the armor pieces to build that. You just need a couple of the armor pieces with this side MS here. This is what the inside looks like, so you could see how it looks when you port in the forearm piece into the figure, as well as the gripping hands onto the handle here. So all that is pretty cool. It's a little bit hard to do though. And last but not least, I can't believe I was able to get this figure to do it without it being on a stand. This is all of the different armor pieces acting as the weapon mode here on this clear effects piece. Everything ports into these effects slots pretty easily, but just like going out of the figure when you're trying to pop stuff out, popping stuff out of these effects pieces can be a little tricky. Sometimes the gray pegs with the ball jointed armor pieces want to stay in there. And this does make the figure a little bit top and back heavy. As cool as it is, I am going to recommend either a standard SH Figuarts or, you know, Robot Spirits base if you can get one. Everything together though is really cool, but you're going to need some patience when building things. Okay, now that all that is done, the detail portion might be shorter than the accessory portion. This is a beautifully sculpted piece. It is really fantastic. We're going to start at the head. The way that they have painted like the metallic green in the eyes, that's really great. The chevron on here, just like the one I showed off, and the separate one, the red on there is really clean. You have the glossy, slightly greenish black plastic going on in here. So when it comes to these translucent pieces, they have a little bit of light showing in here, kind of like whatever mode that is, where the lights do shine up here. It looks like a little bit of a scratch in the plastic right there. I do think they should have incorporated separate pieces, like the high grade model kit, where, well, you see, not that these are entirely optional, of course, I mean, you can maybe separate this and pull this out, but when you plug this in, and that's really how that's going to look for a while. That's why I decided to get like this. You know, when I built it like that, because I knew that it was going to be kind of like this with the side MS figure. I'll do a size comparison with the high grade towards the end of the review. The rest of this looked really great. The silver going up in here, these long fin pieces, all that's very delicate, so be careful. And you do see the yellow in there. Lots of nice panel lining throughout this whole piece. A little bit of like a silvery, almost like a tealish silver type of paint going on in there. I don't know what it is about, you know, these Robot Spirits figures, but I feel like a lot of the time, you know, this is looking forward and this is kind of shifting off to the right. The neck is kind of hard to align on these figures, but you can see some of the paneling going on and the detailing in that neck. Oh, these really nice intricate details where you see the yellow and blue mixed in with the white, and you do see some silver paint in there, and that is not easy to paint in there. So it looks like there's a tiny bit of silver bleeding into where the black is, but you gotta look really hard to notice that. Something's going on with the actual plastic on that, but that's also not super noticeable. So all that is really nice looking. This is what that back, you know, the back of the figure looks like with that backpack piece. You have this right here. That's also that, you know, black, slightly translucent plastic going on in there. And then you have the yellow vents or whatever these are. Now we move on to the shoulders. I think they might have just painted these black instead of doing, because these are supposed to light up too. But this, you know, this doesn't look like, well, you can't even see it now. But the way they have a little bit of light going on in there or whatever, I don't think they have it going. At least I'm looking hard enough, I don't think I see it. Just something I was mentioning, not really a nitpick or anything. I do like the overall sculpting on these two. I think there's a little bit of a weird plastic splotch up there. That's where you'd put in some of the ports or you know, armor pieces. The gray, I think the actual paint on some of this, like I think a lot of this is molded in a particular color. This looks fine and that looks fine. This looks fine. I think the gray could look a little bit better, but the white and the panel lines, all that looks pretty good. I don't think I'd recommend panel lining a side MS figure unless you very much know what you're doing. The armor, you know, all that detail is really good. And then you can swivel this around if you want this forearm piece to move there, so that way you can properly do the, you know, the shield system. But you get to see a little bit of those inner workings going on right there. These are the fists that the figure comes packaged with, very similar to the detailing on the other hands that I showed off earlier. All that is really cool. You can see how those joints are sculpted too. So far, so good. There isn't much for me to comment on because I really don't know all that much about the inner workings of, you know, all the armor pieces on Gundams besides saying that this is an arm and that's that's a head and that's a chevron and all that, you know. So I'm just gonna let you kind of look at how everything is done. But a lot of these these armor like panel pieces overlapping each other, all that is really nicely done. You get down here and you have a little bit of red plastic near the white plastic there, and all that is covering some gray. Again, really clean panel line sculpting. The paint would definitely bring that out, but I know it would be very complicated. I do think that the back printing is a little bit distracting, but they have to do that. It looks fine. You can cover it when it's like that, so that's fine. That's what that back piece looks like. I believe these armor pieces do also hinge a little bit. Then we get to the thigh section. Kind of like what's up in the chest and the head right there. You kind of get that in the front of the legs. And then these pieces are also on slight ball joints, and these can move around a little bit around the crotch area. There's a port right there for putting in some of the armor pieces. These back pieces with the yellow paint on there are really clean. So what is painted on here most definitely is the yellow. Like you can see all that looks like paint, and then the green in the eyes and the red up here and around the chin, I believe. Actually, that could be molded plastic for the chin. I think the black here is painted. Everything else is mostly, and of course the silver, I forgot to mention. Everything else is molded in certain colors. Not that that's a bad thing, but that's just, you know, something to keep your attention to. These thigh pieces, the way the armor pieces are overlapping, that looks really cool with all the really nice panel lines sculpted on there. You can see a little bit of a separation of the plastic. I think Is this to help with articulation? I haven't really messed around with articulation. Is there even a single joint for that? Yeah, so this bends in, I believe, so that way this can kick in. Okay. I had to double check that. There might be a little bit of a hinge. I think it's just here. So this doesn't move at all, but that still looks pretty cool. You see the yellow on the knee once again. And I think, unless they somehow did this with separate plastic, these gray pieces on the shins don't look painted to me. I could be wrong though. But you see again panel lining and the knee guard, all that. It's very cool looking. They did a really good job at like making this look like, I guess would be hydraulics. Not exactly, but it looks like that. These feet are rather large. You can see the armor pieces going on top there. Panel lines on the back. You can see how they point inward there. All this again is in molded plastic. That's what the bottom looked like. They have really clean detailing. I think all that is really cool. So I may not have been able to provide that much commentary just because I've been talking enough as it is when it comes to accessories, and two, there's just not much that I exactly know on every little thing about how a Gundam works. But you can see for yourself lots of nice intricate details. I think that they got this down really well when it comes to the accuracy. We do have a lot of articulation implemented into this figure. We have a ball joint system going on here, and I don't know if there's actually any hinging. I believe there's a hinge built into the actual head, and then you do have a ball joint going into the torso. You get this range of motion down. It could be, okay, it likes to snap back, you see, and then up like that, so that's pretty good. Being as careful as possible. The tilt, side to side, it could be better. You get it mostly in the neck. So you get all this range of motion when rotating. It could be a little bit better, but the rotation is fine. You do have a little bit of like a butterfly joint type system going on in here. You can hinge things out like this, up and down. Within the shoulder, there's a ball joint here, but it's mostly for rotating. So you see all that. Then these parts hinge here. You have some extra discs that move around going on there. Swiveling up here. You also have double jointed elbows there. I'm trying to see what else swivels. It's mostly the forearm that's going to have swivel, and then we do have ball joints at the wrists here, which the articulation and range of motion could be better. A ball joint here, so that can swivel here. The forward's a little bit better, but the back isn't really that great. We do get a little bit of tilting going on. I'm trying to see if there's other types of rotation throughout here. I think that's it, but we do have these side pieces here that can hinge a little bit. This one's a little stiff. You have a little bit forward and back going around here. It's a little bit of my ball joints, so that goes back that far with the kick out. Forward that much. And then that's almost a perfect split, actually. So thigh swivel is not great on this, and actually on the high grade either. Unfortunately, this robot's design, not really helpful. You get a swiveling here. There is one built in here, but it's also really tight, and that will pop out when you do that. So yeah, the range of motion with swiveling is not amazing. Oh, I just noticed there's a pretty bad splash right there. Yikes. So we do get a little bit of a double joint here and here. So that's as much as the kick you get in there, and then it kicks out that far. We have a ball joint going on in here. It can pivot a little bit. There is a built-in swivel type pivot going on in here too. You can rotate the foot. Actually, you can just see how that looks like right there. I think this hinges up and down a little bit. This little disc piece also moves like that. So actually very similar articulation to the high grade, and I think some of the range of motion could be a little bit better. Measuring out the figure, we are looking pretty close to, without including those long antenna pieces on the head, 14 to 14.5 centimeters. That will put this in the 5.5 inch range. You can see that the Robot Spirits one in the middle is actually really close in scale with the high grade one right there on the right, and on the left we have the Robot Spirits Gundam Barbados. From my understanding, those scales are accurate, I'm pretty sure, so they look like they fit pretty well in scale with each other. Far right, that's the Robot Spirits RX-782 I reviewed last year, and even though this is not an accurate scale, because I'm pretty sure Gurren Lagann is supposed to be smaller than the Gundam, I have the Sentinel Gurren Lagann right there on the far left. Overall, this is a really fantastic figure. I think that Tamashii Nations did a really great job here. The biggest question is this. Are you going to want something that's a little bit more high-end, that has a little bit of complicated stuff going with the accessories, even though it's accurate to how the show is done, or they did it as accurately as they could with how this is done in the show? Or do you want something much cheaper that may not do as much as the more expensive one, but I think arguably could be just as good? Then maybe you should just stick with the $15 to $20 high grade model kit. With that though, I still think that the Robot Spirits figure is really fantastic. Really great paint applications where there is paint. I have a couple splotches in some areas on this figure. It's kind of hard to tell though. This is mostly molded plastic, but the plastic quality is really nice here. Lots of great intricate details. Articulation is top notch here. A very fun figure. If you have the patience to mess around with all those accessories, all that is really cool, even though some of it is a bit complicated. This is a really sick piece. I do think it's a little expensive. It's like 70 to 75 bucks. But you can kind of see why. There's a lot going on here, and I think it's very fun. So with that, Anime Week is over. I tried to get through these reviews as best as I could. Real life stuff got in the way, unfortunately, but we did it. So thank you guys very much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Comment down below what you think about the figure, what you think about the review. Leave a like, share amongst your friends. Follow me on Instagram for more content over there, and I'll see you guys later.